Good day and welcome to the Dev Report. This is the monthly update for the turn-based grand strategy game Sunset Over Lievnos. We are on episode 14, I believe, and this is the progress report for January 2018. That's right. Yep, 2018. Yep. So we actually have...
it's February.
Yeah, but this is for the progress during January.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So we're a week late on this, and the reason why is because we just couldn't get everyone together, and I kind of wanted everyone to be together for this show because we actually have some stuff to talk about. Lots of times we kind of force it a little bit, not force, but we have actual legit things to talk about. So in the sake of not making this thing an hour long, let's jump into her. So let's do a quick roundtable update for what you were working on that month, in the last month, and then we'll dive into some of our topics. So for me, it's kind of the standard content creation tool, still going at it. It's a monstrosity of a beast. The translation and the language thing is taking a massive amount of time. Although I gotta say, I did read an article the other day. I was telling these guys about it, it was, I can't remember who wrote it or anything, but it was something to the effect of mistakes that indie devs always make. And one of them was underestimating how much resources localization takes and not doing it. And so I was like, okay, well, this does explain what I'm experiencing. Why is this taking so bloody long? It's because it just does. And I think that it's still in the air whether it's going to pay off for us or not. But if we ever do need it, this is the way to go, doing it early, because otherwise it would be probably impossible for us to do cost-wise, unless the game just sells like crazy, and then it would warrant it, but I don't anticipate that, so likely it would never, if we don't do it now, we would never translate it.
I don't know, so, law of attraction, dude, you gotta think it's gonna sell lots.
I honestly think it'll sell more than our originally thought. We were originally thinking, if we can get this into 1,000 people's hands, we'll be in good shape. But I think it's gonna. This is growing into a product that's actually has some decent appeal. Like I think
every season that Game of Thrones stays on the air, makes me happy because that means people are still interested in our genre.
That's right, yeah. So I honestly do anticipate it, but at the same time, if it costs us $100,000 to localize, that's cost prohibitively expensive, even if it sells well, right? So I'm still doing that. On the plus side is I'm actually finished building the language part entirely. So I'm back onto, for the last, I want to say, week, I've been back onto actually creating the game again, or the content creation tool again. So all the language stuff is taken care of, and now we can move forward with the language system in place and keep building it. So I expect to. I'm not putting a end date on this because it's actually a giant piece of software. This tool. So but I'll be moving on that entirely during February as well. So, what about you?
So in January. Well, I don't know why every time we do a podcast, I always talk about being sick, but I'm always sick. So I was really sick at the beginning of January. And, but once I got better, then, started to work. So, portraits, right now I'm working on our portraits.
Cool.
Because we're in the game.
Can't wait to see that.
And
wait, are you working on our social media portraits or our game portraits?
Well, it could be either.
Okay.
I mean, really, they could be in the game if we wanted them to be.
I just thought that you said that you were going to do one for different ones.
I don't remember that.
Because there's secret reasons. We can't talk about that.
Yeah, right. I totally forgot about that.
You did?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so those aren't them.
So they'll probably need to be done again then. Oh, yay, joy.
That was, by the way, your idea, so...
I know, it was, wasn't it?
It's a good idea. You'll know more about that when the game comes out.
Later. That's right.
We have to have some mystery.
I know,
we have to have some mystery.
We picked fonts.
Yes.
Which was very exciting.
We finally selected a font, which is grand. It was actually harder than I thought it was going to be. I made I think 17 builds of the game with different fonts and try out things. We narrowed it down to 3. One of them we really liked, but there was one character that wasn't right. The number 1. I showed you guys this morning. It just the number 1 looked like crap.
Which is funny because when I was selecting all of the fonts to begin with, because I think I picked like 30, they were all fairly similar, but it is actually amazing the difference.
There's massive difference when you put them in there.
Yeah. So we ended up with 2 that we can, one we'll for sure use in the game, one sort of as a backup. And then we also ended up with a couple of sort of more fancy fonts, which actually I was thinking about which would be good for the map, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And also like promo material and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we can be consistent across the board like that.
Yeah, and they've got lots of good flavor to them too, so excited. And that's all for me.
Okay, good. Justin?
Well, for me, the last month was mostly doing my work project, which was, excuse me, consulting actually takes up way more time than I anticipated. So I just finished up my first project. They kind of threw me out to the wolves where you've got to spend so much time learning how to do it and then doing it.
Every job I've ever done has thrown me off the deep end.
Yeah, this one was brutal.
Yeah.
This was tough. But I'm contemplating doing some different things going forward. My next project seems to be a lot more reasonable time-wise, so I should be able to squeeze some actual time into this now rather than spending every waking moment on my day job. But yeah, no, we're contemplating doing maybe some web contracts on the side and spending a lot more time doing this stuff, which I would enjoy. So kind of in the preliminary stages of that, but we'll see what happens in the next couple of months because I don't enjoy spending a lot of my life doing work for someone else.
Yeah. That's the end goal. I mean, that's really ideally what we're all creatives and we're all independent and in a lot of ways. And we have to take these jobs to pay our bills and to live life. But it would be nice if we can eventually transition where we can do our creative endeavors.
I'm so jealous of every person that I follow online who doesn't have to go to a day job.
I know, yeah.
And they can just spend 8 hours of their day working on
stuff.
Well,
and the other thing is like in a lot of ways we're competing with these people, right? Like we're creating products like art and games that are competing with those people. And those people are working full time on their craft, which means they get better faster. Yeah. And they can create more product. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like if we didn't have to worry about our jobs, the game would be done already.
So done. Yeah.
It would be done. So, but it is what it is, and part of our job is learning, because I feel like we have the skills and the product and the abilities at this point. Maybe not 5 years ago, but now we do, where we could be commercially viable. But what we haven't done is really spend a lot of time developing anything to sell, anything to give to people. Well, not give to people, but sell to people, right? Like we can't expect to make a living doing this if we're literally not giving anybody the chance to give us money, right? Yeah. Or you know what I mean? So that's one thing that we're starting to kind of look at a little bit. So we've got some ideas there. And some of that will be we'll talk about that in a little bit with our secondary topic. But so Justin's right. It'd be nice. I mean, it's probably going to take us a little bit of time to get to that stage, but that is the ultimate goal. So hopefully we can make something happen there. And Kel, how about you?
Well, I actually basically done all those UIs that I was talking about doing in the video there. Now that a font has been picked, I'm going to have to go back and tweak them all.
Yeah.
Now, but
well, actually, that is an interesting thing, though, because the way we did font originally was a little bit short-sighted. We just kind of like put it in wherever it was needed. But realistically, we should have some overarching font manager, because now, for example, we need to change the font. It's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have to go in and change everything, right? And so really, we should have had some central place to control that font, and then everything just uses that. So likely, I don't know if you'll do it or not, but likely you will. I think because you did over half the UIs at this point. So likely we'll hand that off to you and see if you can tackle that, create the font manager, and then go back and change it all.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Kind of
gross
sucks,
job.
But
but it'll be nice on the other end, though. These are the learning processes of making a game that's more than like 10 classes. So that was good. So let's talk about the next thing. I have on my list here is we already talked about fonts, so that's good. I did want to talk about on the update side, the map as well. I just wanted to say, so Erica gave me high definition versions of the map now. The map is done, and so I'll be, whenever I can figure out some time, coloring that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we prioritize that. It is a high priority to me, but I'm also trying to get as much done into the content creation tool as possible.
Well, and it's not really something that we can like show off really, because that's something I think we want to save.
No, we decided several podcasts ago not to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we didn't want to save it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Did we?
Yeah, because remember we said that we needed to throw it in the game and try it, because there could be problems that come up because of it. Because the map we're using is small.
Right.
Right. Everything is small, so label sizes, map clicking, scrolling, all of these things might be issues on the bigger map.
True
So we
story.
wanted to be able to switch between the two, and we figured there's no point in like doctoring it all up and hiding it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
No, that sounds.
And the other side is it will be actually a better representation of the game anyway.
Yeah.
So I'll start coloring that and see how far we get, or rather how soon I can get it done. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Game Jolt updates. So for the better part of 2 months, I guess.
It'd be 3 months. We started at the beginning of November.
Okay, so better part of 3 months, we've been doing a weekly update on the Game Jolt website, where we just posted the tasks we completed that week, what we're working on next, oftentimes a screenshot. We posted these video blogs there. And so Game Jolt, for anyone who doesn't know, is kind of I guess almost an indie, it's like a indie distribution platform, I guess. And so our idea was because they get some 14, 15 million hits per month. So our plan was to consistently update there and try and get some following and try and get some exposure. Well, it fell completely flat. Like, I think we got like 2 or 3 views, like tops. So Game Jolt is good if you're selling a game that's popular. It's not good for, like, at least in our experience, getting discovered and getting your name out there. So I think we've decided to stop.
And how many posts did you guys do?
Every week
One
for
a
3
week.
months.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not panning out. Like, we got one follower, but he's another game dev, so
Yeah,
that's
so
not even a real follower.
So how does is it like a blog? Like, how does
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
So do you tag it like in social media then? Like, how do people find your posts?
Well, that's the thing, is that it, like, the platform supposedly is supposed to help with that, right? So they have features and all this kind of stuff, right? But there was no way to get discovered really there. It wasn't really working. So I think we're going to try some other things.
Yeah.
So we're going to brainstorm a few other things. I'm wondering if we don't try, like, one of our original ideas was to use TIG Source, the TIG forums. That's the independent, what do they call it? TIG, the independent game source. Yeah. It's got way fewer followers way fewer monthly hits, but I think you're going to be more visible, because if you do a post, you pop to the top of the list every time, right? For your dev blogs. Whereas this, you're just buried. You never show up unless they hand select you.
So here's a question
Apparently.
for you: is again, like, I'm just thinking, why weren't we posting that to Twitter?
Well, that's our mistake, but at the same time, yeah, I don't know. I guess we could have.
Well, the idea was that it was game centric, right? Whereas Twitter is sort of general, so we thought that with 14 million people
Well, I'm just trying to think,
actually going there for
about
games.
how the optimization works, right? Because if it's like any other platform where the more you link to it, the more it shows up in search engines, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So if you post to the blog and then link it to the Twitter, then all of a sudden your SEO is increased, right?
Even if our yeah, I guess we should have done that. Like, even if the only thing is, like, our Twitter, like, we've got not a whole lot of Twitter followers, and we have some engagement, but I'm not sure it's enough to
But the
drive
reason
that.
we don't have a lot of Twitter followers is because we don't post very often, right? But because I'm just thinking you guys were doing once a week, which is definitely plenty enough
Yeah,
to increase exposure on Twitter.
yeah.
So
We'll have to talk more about that one maybe.
Yeah.
I just know that there's a whole bunch of what we're looking for, I guess, is a platform that will help us promote like itself, like the system should help us
to our niche.
Yeah,
specifically.
because realistically, if that platform isn't going to help us, then we could put our blog anywhere, just on our own website, on anything, and we could link to Twitter and stuff. And maybe we should be doing that, but that is a good point, though. You know, we should probably be posting to social media when we update those, like we do with this.
Yeah.
Right. But the platform, I feel, if it supposedly helps indies, it should actually help us in some way.
Did you do any research about that?
Well, I did originally back in October when we were evaluating each of these things, right? And it's hard to tell what a service is going to offer you until you go into it,
right?
Because like you can read reviews and stuff, and there's a group of people that love it, a group of people who hate it, so it's really hard until you jump in. But yeah, you bring up a good point. I think we should probably investigate more. So we'll have maybe a bigger conversation about that.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there, there are a few people watching. If anyone out there knows of a good service or a good method that you've seen for promoting, fire us a message and we'll take it into consideration, because that's one of our biggest problems, really. Is, you know, I think the game's going to be good. When we're done, it's going to be good.
I think
how do we get out there?
Definitely one of the first things we should do, since you have a Twitter and you have a Twitter, like you guys should be linked up to the Sunset Over Lievnos Twitter, right? Because right now you're just posting to your personal account.
That's right.
But you actually should be posting to to this account, because right now I'm the only one who's really posting, and I'm sharing what you're posting on your personal Twitter. Yeah. But it would just be so much easier if you just put it straight on there.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I guess, since like when I post about this, it's coming from me, but really what I should do is come from the game. Yeah. And then I can retweet it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we just have a generic login, right? So all of us should be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, there's tools that allow you to share accounts anyway. So, okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. So we'll look into that. Okay, so the next, now there was let's talk about what you wanted to talk about.
The story?
No.
Oh.
Oh, was it the story?
I don't know.
I thought you said there was something else.
Was there?
Sounds like it's a story.
Okay, then let's get into this. Okay,
that's what it is.
So here's what I want to read. We had a comment last month from Joe. That is all, just Joe. He said, "Hey Tyson, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about some of the lore of Lievnos in your next dev report. I'm curious about the central story, major families, creatures, etc." So, I think it's a good topic, and I know Kelsey and I have been and Justin as well, bouncing ideas about what to do. And it also does highlight that obviously we're not doing a really good job at communicating our world and all that kind of stuff.
Well, we haven't really communicated much.
No. So what we've done already is we have actually, this is like 2 years ago, I guess now at this point, I wrote a supposed short story that was supposed to serve as an intro to the game. So the events that led up to the beginning of the game, and it got quite large, and it turned into.
And it's going to be even bigger.
Yeah. So it turned into a novella, and then actually a novel of around 60,000 words. So we did. So if you're watching and you're interested, you can go back in time a little bit. I can't remember. It's on the channel. Actually, you know what? I'll put a link to it in the description on the YouTube thing. It's a analysis of the first 3 chapters. We released a rough prototype of those first 3 chapters on the website, and that's on sunsetoverlievnos.com a few posts back. I can probably even post to that or link to that.
Yeah.
But actually, I wonder if we should do that. Well, we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
So you can't. I guess we can put the old versions up. They're a little bit rough, but then we did an analysis. We had a round table. I think there was 6 of us there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were 6 of us there. It was actually really cool. It's a long podcast. It's like an hour and a half where we talk about those first 3 chapters, and that was really fun. But so you can actually read it and watch the analysis there where we discuss things like that. And but our plan was originally to edit that and release it chapter by chapter. And we were like, when do we do it? When do we do it? But I think the time is now.
Well, I think the reason why we didn't end up doing it was just because we didn't have time, right?
Yeah.
So, because really we were spending so much time on our story it was taking away from time we should be spending on
the game itself. Yeah.
So it's a balance that we're trying to achieve.
But one of our original ideas too, I believe, was that we wanted to release the game at the end of that. So we have, I think there's 22 chapters, so just about 6 months worth of content if we released weekly. Not quite, like five and a bit maybe. And our idea was to lead up to the release, and then drop the game at the end of that. And so we were holding off on that. But I don't think I care about that anymore. I think we can just release it as content, and then after we're done that,
I don't even think it needs to be weekly. I think
release
it could
the
just
whole
be
thing?
just release it when we want to. Like when we're done with a chapter, then we feel good about it. Then
I
we
like
just put it
keeping
out
to
there.
a semi-schedule, right?
I know we keep talking about schedules though,
I know,
and not keeping them.
I know, but that's a problem with us, right?
Yes.
That and if we want to be in this industry and be like professional, we just have to figure it out. That's part of it. We can't be such amateurs that we can't keep a schedule. You know what I mean?
All I'm saying is that we have a finite amount of time.
You're right.
During a week.
Yeah.
And so if we are devoting time to the story because we have to release a chapter, then that's, again, time we're taking away.
I know.
So the chapter should just be when we have time to do it, we do it, and when we're done, we're done. Like if we're going to be releasing weekly content, it should be weekly content on the game.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. But we still have, like, it's sitting there on the shelf, like 90% done.
It's not 90% done.
Well,
it's 60% done.
How do you think it's 60?
Well, because I just started, like, in chapter 12 of 22.
Yeah.
I had never done anything with those chapters.
Right.
Because I only contributed until chapter 11.
Right. And the other thing, though, is that I had one of my English instructors do an editing pass for us.
Yes.
And I haven't done the updates on that.
So yeah,
there is definitely some work there.
To be done. Plus, if we're talking about plot development or we're talking about world development, there's still a ton of stuff that we can add to the story.
But do we want to do that though? That's what I'm saying. Like, do we want to just say, okay, this story isn't perfect, and honestly, it's not perfect.
I think because the story for us has always been a great tool.
Yeah.
And the tool is to help us flesh out all of these details, right?
Yeah.
So if we're focusing on adding those things to the story, then we are thinking about it and creating it as we do it, right? So then it's actually just an opportunity for us to do the thing we actually want to do through the vehicle of the story, right?
Yeah.
So
no, that's true. Yeah. So so interestingly, it was supposedly a small story that led up to the events that kickstart the game.
Yeah.
And the characters, it was originally a small cast, and we were planning on having 100 characters in the game originally.
Yeah.
And then we wrote, so we actually came up with a list of characters, then we wrote the story. And now... So what did you say?
So
we never did a character inventory until last week.
I just did the character inventory, and this is again just going over the story as it is now. Mm-hmm. So I anticipate there will be more.
Yeah.
We have 55.
55
that are just mentioned in the story. And then that doesn't include the characters that we have developed that are going to be for the game. So we're going to have well over 100 characters.
Holy, I don't even understand that.
See, not all of the characters we have in the story have to have places in the game.
Well, here's the thing.
Because a lot of them are like servants and people who probably, guards and military people we don't need to talk about.
No,
really,
but to be fair, the reason we have like little name drops for servants and stuff like that was for that reason.
I know. Yeah.
Was for that we want people to be able to touch base even briefly with characters that are in the game. So I mean, I guess that's legitimate.
And that also includes people that are dead, right?
Right. And so they won't be in the game.
So they won't be in the game.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's probably about 5 characters that are like that.
Spoiler alert! No, I'm just kidding. Someone dies in this game. So, but it's still remarkable because I don't remember putting that many people in there. That's crazy.
Yeah, and like I said, there probably will be more.
Anyways, you can take a look at those 3 chapters rough, and keep an eye out because we will be working. I think I'm going to make it a little bit higher of a priority in that I wasn't doing anything and I want to do something now.
Yeah.
And I want to do that passive editing with my English instructor for sure. And we can probably talk about some things and flesh out some details in there.
I mean, if we want to answer the question that was posted online, basically the lore of the game is a sort of loosely based fantasy medieval style, like Game of Thrones or
it's
like
Game
Lord
of Thrones,
of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, and what some of our
any
inspiration.
Of Beowulf, any of those other stories that are like that.
I also kind of one of my inspiration is almost like a Shakespearean mythology as well, or a Shakespearean medieval as well, where it's kind of like gritty and slight. Like if you take a look at like Hamlet or something like that, right? There's the witches in it, but it's not overtly high fantasy. Magic. There's magic and ghosts and these things in it, and it's almost to a subtler effect. So when you do see something magical, it means something more.
Yeah.
That's kind of the feel we're going for. And so I'm just trying to think the first 3 chapters if there's any like fantastic or really magical or fantastic elements.
Well, we talk about Hess.
Oh yeah, of course.
Of
Hess.
course.
Yeah. So one of the main characters has a giant kind of one
He's
of
like
his.
a familiar.
Yeah, he's like a familiar, and
Yeah.
it's like a giant dog cat kind of creature who's like ultra loyal to him, and he's an exotic creature, and the creation of that creature and that relationship between his familiar or pet, right? It's like a working pet or working familiar. It was so interesting that we made that a thing in the game.
Yeah.
We like that's something that came out of the story, and I really like that idea. So there's pets and familiars and those kind of things that
in the first 3 chapters we also talk about our witch advisor, who is the sort of magical advisor to the king.
That's right.
So
and
we have,
and she plays a role because she's kind of one of the key aspects why they're so worried. So a major event happens at the beginning of the story, and ordinarily it would probably walk away, nothing, like nobody would find out. But
they don't have modern forensic techniques.
Yeah,
so,
but we have this powerful witch who has the ability that could potentially, if things lined up right, discover them, and so that sets there's key magical, and later in the story we have the discovery of an artifact that was used by a king in days of old.
That's right.
And that gave him the power to be king for a very long time. And the artifact was lost and is rediscovered, and that sets a bunch of events in motion, and it plays a significant part in the story that leads up to where the game starts.
Yeah.
So we've got that, and
we also talk about the Beast of Broma.
The Beast of Broma is a big part.
I mean, there's lots of flavor.
Yeah, there's a lot of flavor, and I inserted little things in there too, like in the Ben Kerlun chapter, and that one is a little bit later, but it's almost in passing. Like it's the Nilmergs. They're little creatures that we've made up. I like making up creatures. So I've got this mythology of they're like kind of gremlins, but they delight in war. Ordinarily they're fine, but as soon as you start fighting, these Nilmergs come out into the battle and just have a heyday with you. And so it's like
they're attracted to
that.
The
and so in one of the chapters, there's an escalation of conflict, and these Nilmergs come out and make the situation even worse. And so they're not interested in sides; they're just interested in the mischief. And so so we have creatures like that. I even threw in my what's it called now? Dadger. I've created a Dadger, and I made this creature. It was a D&D creature I made 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, and so I've been using this guy in these little. They're like a pack, kind of like a. How do I describe them? They're kind of like a dog, but they're. I don't know.
More like a gargoyle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're more like a gargoyle, but they're a pack animal, and they live in the forest of Broma, and so there's run-ins with those that I've thrown into the game. Yeah, so there's monsters and magic and stuff. That's one of the things that I liked about Gemfire over Romance of Three Kingdoms originally was the magical elements, the fantasy elements, and so being that's my inspiration, that's what I wanted to draw on. I want to have these cool things come in, and some of them are not super developed. And that's intentional. It's like, here's a creature and it's got a weird name and there's implications about it, but we're not going to explain a lot because I want you as the reader to have, or not reader, the player, or well, reader in some
Well, yeah,
to
and I
have
think
to use their imagination
that's right.
and just and because I feel like if there's some entry points out there that are unknown, that leads mystery to it, right?
Well, and ultimately, all our story is just an entry point. Like, pretty much everything
That's right.
that we drop into the story is meant to be paid off in the game.
in the game itself, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, interrupted there for a second. The camera stopped. But we want the one thing that I was going to say was our event system that we've developed is actually really cool. It's better than I thought we were going to have going in. It's very flexible. And the cool thing about it is that I'm pretty sure that it's almost like a building blocks system for creating stories and creating things like that. And through the content creation tool, we are allowing people, like anybody, can put in creatures, can modify the creatures that we've created. They can build stats. They can put in events and story. And I feel like, at least I hope, that people are going to take what we've done and they can even write their own side stories to our world, or completely, completely their own story, their own characters, everything within the sandbox that we've created. And there's some neat scenarios and modes that we've come up with as a result of that. So, like, the event system allows us to do things like spawn creatures and have key characters and stuff like that. So one thing that I think we're going to include out of the box, so we were originally going to have like one scenario, but there's one thing that we were kind of playing around with, and that's like a kind of a zombie survival mode where you're trying to spread your domain, or we don't even need that really. It could be just survive it, because the world is going to be like invaded by zombies. Like every province is just going to spawn them, and you're going to have the ability to keep fighting them off. Like, you're going to try and develop your province and potentially fight off enemies, but at the same time, like, constant perpetual zombie invasions. And some other ideas that I was throwing around with are kind of like a Viking invasion and that could be something that happens in the game where it's like, okay, if you're on the west coast of the world, there's maybe a far off land where Vikings are trying to invade. And so if you're in those 2 or 3 provinces on that side of the map, you're going to have to fight off occasional or periodic Viking invasions. And we want to design the event system so that there's good mid and late game events. So one of the problems with these kind of games is that typically you get so powerful by mid game that it's just a matter of time and there's no real fun. And so in our game, we have... we've got systems of prerequisites and stuff, so we can actually fire off events when you get powerful. And so when you get powerful, then all of a sudden, like, a whole horde of Vikings come in, and it's hard, and it's going to beat the crap out of you. So it's like you've got to be ready for everything. And the other thing that these games have is that if you've got multiple provinces, you just put all your resources on the front lines because no one else sees action. Once you've fought forward, everything. And so our event system will allow events to happen interior. So you can't just abandon your lands once you've won and move on the front line, which I think will distribute our resources a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So we're using those fantasy elements like zombies and Vikings and all these kind of things to really leverage mid-late game events and make things interesting. And yeah, so on that front, we're kind of, the lore question is a good one because we don't have everything like completely nailed down, right? Like it's still an organic growing process.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've started doing is we have we're starting to create different artifacts and tools and creatures and things like that in the game, and you guys are starting to contribute to that too. And so really, I mean, we can, like, if we really wanted to start releasing, we could release stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know?
And yeah, so the game is heavy. Like, one thing that I wished in Gemfire they did was the ability to have items.
Yeah.
And they had items. Like, there was like 4 or 5 items in the whole game, and they were very hard to find, and when you got them, they did very little. So one thing that I wish they did was have items, and so our game does. We have 2 types of items. We've got, categories. We've got regular items that you can equip to officers, and so these things, and we've got a massive list, including randomly generated ones. So there's custom ones that you can create through the content creation tool and link up to story events and all those kind of things. Searching provinces, you can do all those kind of things. Or you can create randomly generated ones, and that's still part through the event system. But the other thing that we have, and we're calling them wonders, is they're discoverable artifacts that are based on a province.
Yes.
So they're like magical temples or castles or things like that that you can discover or build. Basically, it's like discover it through following the story, and then that gives that province a unique trait. And so it's all still within the realm of the game, but something like if you build a castle through the story elements, you can increase the defense of that province potentially beyond the defense levels that any other province has. So now you've got a province that's very difficult to take over. Or if you once you read the story, it's interesting because that key element that I was telling you about in the story is in the game, and it's going to be amazing in the game. And so I think it'll be cool because the player won't start there, but the player will have a little bit of an insight and say it's there. And so it's one of the goals that we've, like, externally, the player can be like, I know that's there. I wonder what it does in the game. And those are the kind of things that I want to do. Yeah. And so we've seeded a bunch of those things in the story, and they're in the game. And so, and that's what I'm hoping, right? Is this story that we've created is going to, if you don't read it, it doesn't really matter. You can jump in and the game is just completely fine. But if you want more, if you like the lore, you can read the story, and then when you get into the game, this is me speaking. Like, if that were me, I would do that for sure. Read the game, read the story, and then when you get to the game, it's like, oh cool, and all the things just kind of come into place, and you can see the resolutions because we leave a lot of loose ends at the end of the story, right?
Not just because we're terrible writers.
Like intentionally,
we do it on purpose.
Intentionally, so that you go into the game and you go, oh, this is a result of this.
Yeah.
And if you didn't read it, then it just looks like the starting point. We're trying to architect it fairly good so that we can do that.
Yeah.
But that's also one of Kelsey's favorite things. Like you were telling us about Overwatch before, about how like the Overwatch game doesn't have any story in it. All the story about Overwatch is external, all short animations and comics and all that kind of stuff, which you particularly like.
Well, I'm just saying that it's a very popular thing, like, as far as
right,
like, you know, why everyone sort of loves that game. Like, it's just impacted culture so much.
Yeah.
Right, and it's just, I'm just saying it was weird that, like, the game has no story at all, but it's impacted the world so much.
Right. Yeah. And so it's those external things from the story that we can really use.
So is that all fan generated then?
No, it's Blizzard that does it outside the game. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, every couple of months they release a new video short and
Interesting.
And they're only like 5 minutes or 10 minutes long or something. They do it every couple of minutes, but it goes into depths of one or two characters, and then so you see that personality of that character.
I'm just thinking that, like, that's an excellent model.
Yeah.
And we should probably copy.
Yeah, and they do the same kind of thing where, like, you can play the game without paying any attention to any of it, but if you stop for a second and look at like a poster on the wall, you'll see hints.
Yeah.
And the hints will turn into a short 3 months later.
Right.
And or you can read the short, and in the level there's like a crash robot in the wall that, like, when Power Fist was announced, right? Like, the animation shows him punching a robot into the wall, and then the level has it. The level has it in there.
Well,
if you didn't read the thing, it's like, there's a robot in the wall. Something happened. You know, it doesn't really matter. But if you know, it's like neat.
And there's one too with Genji and Hanzo, where they do a fight in the short, and Hanzo shoots an arrow at Genji, and Genji deflects it, and it sticks into the wall in the corner, and you can actually go into the game and find the arrow in the floor. So just neat things
That's
like that.
That's so cool. And even
temple.
Before Sombra was announced, they had created a voice line for somebody that would rarely come up, but it would say something like, I can't remember what it was, but it was something like, I wish Sombra was here. Nobody knew who Sombra was at the time, but it spurred tons of rumors and speculation, and then it was like 6 months later than Sombra came out.
And they did something like that with Doomfist too, where they have like transport missions.
Yeah.
And one of the missions was transferring Doomfist's fist. So that's what you're transform, and that was before it was released.
It was interesting because the update came along, and it was, instead of a giant container, just a blank container, it was all of a sudden this thing. Nobody knew what it was.
I mean, the thing that makes that whole scenario really attractive to me is the fact that they're not giving you a timeline of when they're releasing that stuff. They're just doing it, right?
Yeah.
So to me that seems like a good model for us, because then we don't have to worry. Okay, people are going to be expecting it at a certain time.
So I guess what you're trying to say is
we can drop flavor and then release something.
So I guess what you're trying to say is, if you're interested in that, you should just follow us on social media.
Yes.
and we'll post about it whenever it comes out, and then you won't miss it. So go ahead and do that.
And if you're paying attention too, I'm trying to put as much flavor in the illustrations as well. So
well, and that's one of the reasons. Like when we first started this whole project, like I knew I wanted to make a game, but I didn't know what. And then we had worked together for a while, and I didn't even know you did art for the longest time. And then I went over to the desk one day, and you were drawing, and I was like, sick. And because they were static animations or static pictures and not an animation, I was like, what could we do with this?
Yeah.
But the illustrations had so much, I felt, story to them already, that it was just the illustrations and the style was just like, you didn't even need to do more. Everything already has story in it, so it will be easy to build on that world. And there's mystery even within that. And so that's one thing that we're going to try and do, because we've got limited, we don't have a world to actually explore. It's all very menu driven. We're going to use every place we can to tell story. And so we've got like all of our buttons and events, like the event icons, like flooding and all those kind of things. Like we're going to try and tell story through those images, and so we might have, the event for a plague or the event for something, have something in there that'll be subtle that is in some story element.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I feel like sometimes like I say, you don't even need to explain it.
Yeah.
Just let people's imagination go.
Excellent.
Right? Yeah, no, it's exciting. I'm very excited about the story in the world. So thanks for the question, Joe. It was Joe, right?
I don't know.
It was Joe. Thanks for the question. That was
so
great.
Long ago.
And so, like I say, right now you can go and read the first 3 chapters. Listen to that podcast where we do the analysis. We did even have one fellow rewrite chapter 1 out of interest because he liked it, and to give his take on it, and that was really interesting to read. So the feedback, like, I know that the writing isn't great because I do like writing, but the narrative writing and all that stuff is a whole nother skill that I do want to get better at. But I feel like it's serviceable. Everyone I've talked to said, okay, I wasn't distracted by how bad the grammar was.
Yeah.
So it might not be super strong, like using specific plot devices or stuff, but I think it's interesting. And if you're a gamer and you're interested in the game, it will be fun anyway.
Yeah.
So it serves its role well within the context of that.
So if you're looking for background and flavor and lore and all of that world development, that's where you're going to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what we want to do too is finish that, and then also look for more opportunities to expand our lore. Like we were throwing around ideas of short stories and, like those kind of things. Like we were.
Well, I think there's plenty of opportunities in that. I mean, even just through character development, developing characters' backstories. If we figure out really cool items, and then we can, we can just develop a story about the item.
Yeah, and we can just throw, like, a short story. I feel like can just be a post. It's just
absolutely.
Throw out the post. Hey guys, we created a cool little backstory for this item. Yeah. It's like it'll be in the game, and when you find it in the game, this is the backstory of it.
We should really create something in our Google Drive.
Yeah.
So that, if you have time, on a lunch break or wherever you are.
That's exactly what we were talking about last night.
You could definitely go do that. Yeah.
That'd be a great idea.
Because we all wanted to get better at writing, and that's something that takes a lot of time and practice to do, and this is a great way to do it. So we've got lots of little things that we can do.
Well, and like whenever I'm doing it, I'm doing like a ton of research while I'm writing too. And I'm always discovering really cool things that, from like real life, from history, that influence what I'm writing, but also tie things together really neatly. Mm-hmm. So I always find that really exciting. Yeah.
So I think we should definitely do that, and then we can release these nuggets.
Yeah.
Like I say, we've got like hundreds of items. Well, maybe not hundreds, but quite a few, like already over 100.
Well, that and the wonders, and maybe
Yeah.
even
And the wonders
like,
and the
how did the
characters.
zombies come into place?
Yeah.
Because we can write about like this particular ruins
Yeah.
that happened hundreds of years ago, and that's
Yeah.
why it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So-
And we do have an ancient history that's slowly starting to develop.
We
too,
do
so,
have, we have
So
touched on.
you know, anything that's like ancient, anything that's from the past,
Yeah.
is like open. It's like you can do anything
Yeah.
with that. Really, it doesn't even have to be tied to the story
Yeah.
of the game at all.
And the other thing on the topic of story and
So you don't have
those-
to worry about continuity. I guess that's my point.
for sure.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's nice about, or that's going to be interesting, I think, about the game is that we're allowing you to play as several different families, and each family is going to have their unique story elements. So there's going to be kind of general things that happen in Lievnos, but there'll be specific families. So you can play through those, each family, to get a different view of how things are going on and to follow their stories. But on top of that, the way I see it, there's going to be so many conditional types of things that lots of them you're going to stumble upon. I feel like you're going to be able to replay this quite a few times to get different story elements and different things, and the community is going to have fun trying to catalog this whole thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you guys have access to our story
Yep.
in the drive?
Yeah, I read it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was
I need to
a while
reread
back.
it again.
Okay, yeah,
but-
because you should go in because just to see the stuff that we've added to it too, which will give you lots of flavor and places to start when developing items and wonders and things like that.
So I'm going to put aside a little bit more time to start working on that again, and I think these guys are going to jump in and start doing some short stories and even a couple of paragraphs, like.
Yeah, it really doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like
It's just
even a story. It
paragraph,
could be almost like, here's a description of this item,
Yeah.
right? And it's just like little flavor things like that I think are going to be interesting, and we can play around with characters and all that kind of stuff, and really in between now and when the game comes out, flush that stuff out and put a lot of depth in there.
Yeah.
And if we start now. We've been doing it, but making another priority now that we can grow this stuff. Otherwise, the game's going to be done, and we're going to be like, okay, let's create,
exactly.
10 metric tons of content.
That's the thing that I like about it, is the fact that you can kind of jump in and access it whenever you have a few minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, I know you like working on stuff on your lunch break.
That's right.
It's like, if I have like a couple of hours, I don't usually spend like a ton of time during the week. It's usually just like 2 or
Here and
3
there,
hours.
yeah.
So, but yeah, it adds up, right, over time. So.
And the other thing will be nice is once we get the content creation tool done and in place,
Then you're gonna have
you
stuff
could
to input.
you could actually create your stories right in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could actually put them in there. And so, like I say, a lot of these things could be independent. Like we can put in side quests and all this kind of stuff that's just like, here's a prerequisite. You've got this amount of skill for this officer who's in this province, and then this story node opens up. It's an infinite number of things you could do with that.
We were looking at doing stuff where you don't hit every element every game, right?
Yeah.
So there's really sort of obscure conditions where all of a sudden it pops up, if it's your third playthrough and you're like, holy crap, like
And I love those things. They're exciting when you stumble upon things like we've been playing a load of the farming sim lately, and like we're at 70 hours over the course. Pretty big numbers. I talked about it last time.
I'm not going to feel bad about not spending time on something anymore.
It's so good. It's so good. But the one thing that, as fun as it is, it's just there's a little part of me that just wishes that some random thing would happen. You know what I mean? Like nothing happens in the game. But I was just sitting there. I can't remember what I was doing. But you know how there's like the little particle effects, like little grass blowing through the air and dust and stuff like that? Well, there was this one little piece of dust that was blowing through the air that looked like a UFO in the distance. And I was like, it was almost magical in that, can you imagine that there was like crop circles, a very rare, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's completely separate and not really relevant to the game. But what if they did? What if they put a little bit of mystery in, and you've been playing this game and you didn't know it was there and you didn't expect it, and all of a sudden something happens completely unexpected, and then you're like, what is this? And those magical moments are what I'm trying to get. I want to be able to create those things. right? So I want to be able to load this up so that there's all these things that could potentially happen, and you don't necessarily. There's going to be specific goals. Obviously, you can see a story, and you're like, I know I have to do this, but there's going to be a bunch of things where you don't know, and it'll just happen, and you'll go neat.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
anyways, yeah,
'Kay.
We're excited about the lore. I mean, that Gemfire, the world in Gemfire was grossly underdeveloped, and the few nuggets they gave us made me crave more. And that's one of the core inspirations for this game, is to make Gemfire what I wanted it when I was a kid. So, yeah, if you're into the lore stuff, stay tuned, because that is one of our goals with this game. So. Yeah, again, thanks for the question, Joe. And do we have anything else for this one?
I think that's
Okay.
we're long enough.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for next month, where we'll be talking more about this game, and hopefully some good progress will happen this month. Here's hoping.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.